Hello everyone, my name is Giovani and welcome to the first video of the Building University series that I'm going to be starting here on my channel. This series is going to be teaching you all of the concepts that you need to know about building so that in the future you can become a really good builder. These videos will not be specific tutorials, they will be serving more as guides. As more episodes come out, hopefully it'll become clearer on how they'll be structured. Yeah, that's the way. Yeah, structured. I call this series a Building University because I want to cover the ideas behind each concept in depth. However, the concept should be pretty easy to grasp once you finish watching the video. At the very end, I will be having a brief summary of what we discussed. But for now, let's get started with the first episode where we'll be talking about block pallets. So, what are block pallets? Well, a block pallet is a group of blocks that you use for a specific build. Having the right block pallet can really affect how good your build ends up looking. No matter how skilled you are at building, block pallets still take a big importance. If you're just barely starting out, then this could really be a big boost to help with any of the builds that you're making, and it'll help them look a bit more pleasing. To know how to pick the best block palette, we will need to talk a bit about the colors and textures and materials for the blocks. For now, let's just start with the colors. Colors are important when choosing a block palette. Having a block palette with colors that don't really go well together can affect the quality of the whole build. To understand how colors work, you will need to know a bit about color theory. If you have taken any sort of art class while you were in school or while you're in school right now, you most likely covered this subject. But to summarize, the color theory is basically that a certain group of colors go well together as a group. That's really the best way that I could simplify it. There will be a link down in the description with more info about colors, how they go well together, and the names of certain color groups such as complementary colors, triads of colors, etc. One thing that should be noted is that colors such as white and black and the colors in between are outliers because those colors for the most part go with just about every other color, at least for the most part. So again, there will be a link down in the description to a site that talks a little bit about color theory. The good thing about colors is that as humans we kind of know if something looks out of place or if it looks off. However, it doesn't hurt to use the color theory as a guide when choosing a block palette. Minecraft has somewhat a limited range of colors and shades. Here on screen you can see the different wool colors and the Minecraft blocks that are somewhat close to that color. As you can see, Minecraft offers blocks in just about most colors, but some definitely have way more than others. Because of these limitations, it's not always easy to find the right blocks to use. The reasons for this is that textures and materials matter a lot when choosing a block palette. Depending on what your build is for, you need to be very considerate of the blocks that you're going to be using so that it makes sense in the end. If you are building a map for people to play on, then you definitely need to care about the blocks that you're going to be using in your build. If you're building something that is just for people to look at, then it's not really that bad to use blocks that wouldn't make sense. And this is very commonly seen in creative plot servers. Most of the time the blocks that you see there don't make sense realistically. However, if you're making a map that people are going to be playing on, then you should really care about the blocks and make sure that they make sense, or else it's going to be distracting when people are playing on your map. Here you can see the house that I made for one of my past videos. The main colors used an analogous palette, which is three colors that are next to each other in the color wheel. Brown is a dark shade of orange, then we have yellow and green. The blocks and / materials are also something that makes sense. In your mind, you don't question why there are wood pillars in the corners. However, if instead of those wooden pillars I had pillars of sand, then you would be like, well, that doesn't really make any sense. So we can see how all of this applies to structures, but block palettes also apply to terraforming. So let's look at some examples of that. The first two examples that you see here make a lot of sense and you don't really question why they look the way that they look. They have a consistent palette all throughout, even with the choice of flowers. And just with that, you can, or with what you see on screen here, you can imagine worlds or just an entire world with this type of terraforming all throughout, because it's a consistent palette and it just makes sense. However, one of the things in my opinion that quickly ruins builds is using mixed block palettes for the terrain, especially for maps that are meant for gameplay. So here, with the example with the two palm trees, I made one that had a mixed block palette. I can see how this could look good from far away, but if you're playing on it, then it's kind of looks like someone just threw up on the floor. If your map is meant for a minigame, make sure you don't make this mistake. Here's an example of a snake map for Mineplex that just never got released. Spoilers. The terrain is just messy because of all the blocks they included in the mix. It's something that is also commonly again done in creative servers, but it's not really a bad thing there because again it's just for looks. They're just trying to get the right colors. So in those cases, again, it's mostly about getting the right colors rather than getting the right textures. And it's also something that is done in a lot of large-scale builds. However, there is an alternative to make, I guess you could say, different shades of floors, at least for terrain, and it's not using block pallets. In the Fantasy SG map that we released at Mineplex somewhat recently, in just about every part we have mixed biomes rather than mixes of blocks on the floor. And by doing this, it's not really as distracting, but the map still has detail and it's just a bit more interesting to look at. But it's not an eyesore, if that makes sense. So let's do a brief summary on how you can choose a good block palette for whatever build you are making. First of all, look at the main colors that you are using. Is there anything that will pop out too much or look out of place? Doing research about the color theory can help you out with this. Second, look at the materials of the block that you're using. Does it make sense to have that block next to the others that you have chosen? Maybe you're just making something that people will look at and not play on. In that case, then you should be caring more about the colors rather than the textures and materials. If that's not the case, then you should really pay attention and make sure that the build makes sense. In reality, block palettes are the simplest part of any build, and it's how you're going to be starting with any build. You know, once you become more experienced, it's not going to be something that you think about too much. If you have played Minecraft for a while, then block palettes are not something you think about because for the most part, you're using them without even noticing. You're using block palettes that you have seen before in other people's builds. But understanding how a block palette affects the build is important, whether it's for looks or for gameplay. If you found this video useful and you want to see more of this series, make sure you subscribe and leave a like down below. Also, there's something that I wanted to mention. Some people have been asking for World Edit and Boxer Sniper tutorials. I will be teaching you how to use those tools in later episodes of this series. But for now, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, hope you enjoyed the video, and take care.